Hi there, this is Linda and welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm putting together my Project Life spread for the week of January 20th through January 26th, 2025, and I'm working with a variety of supplies from Ali Edwards. Let's go ahead and dive right in. Okay, so this is the week of January 20th through 26th, and so I have my sticky note. And I'm just gonna pull the pages out of my album to work on them. And I usually do that off camera, but I just wanted to share that I have this in here. And I'm not sure if it's gonna live in this week, possibly. I'm thinking I'm gonna put this just in one of the weeks for the month. But my plan this year is to include my ephemera in one of these 2x2 page protectors. And I made these. These are a free download. If you are interested, I will link in the description box below. They are in the description of my Project Life setup video. So I will link that video so you can head over there and download these if you are interested. There's one for every month. And I'm putting them in this 2x2 page protector. So I think I'm gonna work on that a little bit today. I'm not sure if my plan going forward is going to be to work on that during one of the weeks or throughout the month. I might not film it every time, but I'm going to maybe work on it for a little bit here. So I have my Winichi cousin here with everything that happened this week. I'm gonna put that off screen just to give myself a little more space here and talk you through what my plan is for this spread. So I'm not working with a specific kit this week. Instead, I am working with supplies from my stash. And I was trying to figure out kind of how I wanted to do that. And my thought was I came across this paper, and this is a scrap of this paper because I used part of it on my title card or my title page for my album this year. I'm obsessed with this paper. I think it came in one of the older scrapbook kits from Ali Edwards. It's definitely Ali Edwards. And I want to cut out these words and put them on my photos. So I thought of this before I lived this week. And I purposefully made sure to take at least one photo every day that I could add a word on top of. Most of them are 3x4, so I need to figure out how that's going to fit onto a 3x4, but we'll see as we go. So I made notes on here. This is my Monday photo. This is my Tuesday photo. This is my Wednesday photo. Then I have this photo to be just like my completed craft room because I finished painting it this week, which was kind of the big thing that happened. Then this is Thursday, so maybe I'll put this one right here. And then Friday, this is Friday. This was also Friday. And then this is my Saturday and my Sunday photos. And then I also have this really cute photo of Pumpkin that I wanted to include on this spread. I'm not sure how I'm exactly going to lay these out. I'm probably going to shift some things around to make it look a little more balanced, but I'll figure that out as I go. So I'm going to cut these out and put them primarily on top of my photos. I'm not entirely sure if I'm gonna cut out each letter or if I'm just gonna cut out around the word. I'm gonna just kind of try and see what I can get. I was looking at here and I think I can get all of the words. Some of them I might have to kind of maneuver from a few pieces, but we'll see how that comes together. And then I have my January stories by the month, which I already used for a spread. I have a process video for that one if you've missed it, but I still have this in here because I've been collecting ephemera in this tray. I needed a place to collect it. So I'm going to put some of these in my spread in those pockets. And then I also might use some of these supplies to fill in the rest of this. And if I don't have everything in here that I need to kind of finish the spread, I might dig into my stash. But these kits are super big, so using them and getting them into more than one spread is great for me. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the camera on double speed and do a voiceover as I get this one put together. Okay, so this spread took me a little bit longer than some of my other ones, and that's just because there's a few more steps involved and like time consuming steps. So I started by cutting out all of the days of the week from this paper. And before I planned to do this spread like this, I looked at this paper and made sure that I had all 7 days of the week complete on this scrap of paper, because this was originally a 12 by 12 and I think it's down to a 9 by 12 now because I had cut a 3 by 4 card off of this to create my title page. And if you go and watch my Project Life 2025 setup video, you'll be able to see how that came together. And I will link that one in the description box below, like I said, because that's where you can get the free download for the ephemera page. So anyways, I'm cutting out each of these and I'm just starting by cutting out the full word. I wasn't entirely sure how I was going to do these, if I was going to cut out each letter or just partial words. And honestly, I ended up not wanting to cut out each letter because that would have been very time consuming, but also because some of the letters kind of overlapped and I felt like it would be a little bit wonky. So I liked the way that they looked together. So I had originally thought that some of these I would be putting them vertical on the 3 by 4 photos, and I end up not doing that because it just doesn't work with the photos that I took. So in my planner this year, I use a take a note. I write in my monthly calendar what my plan is for that weekly spread in Project Life before I live that week. So if I'm trying to collect a certain type of story or something, I can keep that in mind while I am living the week. So for this week, I knew I wanted to use these words. So I wanted to have at least 1 photo per day. And I also specifically made a note to myself to make Wednesday a 4 by 6 photo or horizontal photo so I could fit the word across. And I think it's kind of funny because that ends up being the only one that I can leave as a full word all the way across because it's the only one that I did a horizontal photo, even though it's the longest word. So I did struggle a little bit fitting Tuesday on there because that was a photo of the inside of my car. And you can see on it, the temperature outside at the time I got to work was -2. And that was kind of what I wanted to document from that day. But I wanted to make sure I wasn't covering up any of the important details. The weekend this week was way more eventful than the week because I was repainting my craft room. And if you followed along on Instagram, you definitely have seen a lot of these photos as I shared how that came together. But I will have a video about that coming probably in March, sharing the first part of my craft room redo. So stay tuned for that. But I did have a couple of photos from Saturday and a couple of photos from Sunday, so I was able to choose which one I wanted to put the words on based on what was in the photo. So not only did I need to take a photo per day, but I also wanted to make sure that there was space on that photo that I could add the word on top without covering up something important. So a lot of these photos have like that white space in them intentionally, so I have a place to put the word. So I did have to cut the words kind of wonky sometimes to fit, and I actually am happy with how it turned out. I did think about doing it where I just cut off the word day from each one, so I would just have like mon, Tues, it's like a lot of times craft supplies will do that as opposed to have the full word. But because I was doing the Wednesday, the full thing, it just seemed weird to do it. And I just liked it being the full word, even though some of them, like the Sunday, were cut in a weird spot, in the Friday too. So I'm just adhering all of these down. And then I'm going to go back to all of them and cut off the edges. So these are the things that took a little bit longer because I'm doing these repetitive steps. So everything I'm doing for each one of these days, I have to do it 7 times. I have to cut each word out. I have to adhere each word down. I have to trim around the edges. And then in a bit, I'm going to take this over to my sewing machine and stitch these down. But I will talk about that more when I get to it. This video also is going to take a little bit longer just because I am going to put together that ephemera page in a few minutes here. So I talked about it at the beginning of the video a little bit, but this year I'm collecting my ephemera throughout the month. And rather than doing one 4x6 card that has only 5 pieces of ephemera, I'm doing a 6x8 with 2x2 pockets to include my ephemera. I know some months I probably won't collect enough to fill the entire thing, and that's totally fine. I will either trim it down or add pattern paper or embellishments or something. I'm just gonna have a little bit of fun with it depending on how it comes together. And the other thing I was kind of thinking about is, when am I going to work on this? So I am going to include it in this video for January. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that going forward or when I will include it. It just will be what makes sense. Sometimes I might not do a video for it, but I will definitely share an image on Instagram. So stay tuned over there. If you don't yet follow me over there, you can find the link in my profile here, or I am Linda Loves Creating there, just like I am here. So you can see photos of all of my completed projects. And I do share a lot of projects over there that I don't share here. So I pulled over my large guillotine trimmer to trim down all of my ephemera. I tend to use my rolling trimmer or sliding trimmer most of the time because it's smaller, more portable, easier. But sometimes you need the sturdy, big guillotine trimmer. And for some of these pieces of ephemera, like that butter box, they were a little bit thicker cardboard and they weren't laying flat. So this was a good way to trim them more easily down to 2x2. So I had a lot of fun trimming these out. I'm sorry for my head getting in the way there a little bit, but I was just kind of playing with different ways to put these in the pockets. So this one, or that one I just did, was a sticker from a packaging of clothes I purchased. They put the sticker on the tissue paper. So I cut around the sticker and stuck it on vellum so it would fill out the pocket. And then I'm just pulling over my different pieces of ephemera to cut them down. Some of these were not the right shape. So like the one I did that is next to my title piece, I trimmed it into strips, and then I'm just adhering it onto a scrap of white cardstock. And you can see that some of those scraps of white cardstock that I'm using are extra pieces of that paper that has all of those words of the days of the week. I'm just using the back side of it. And that is a way that I can use up those scraps, because I don't need more of that pattern paper and I don't need to store a lot of those scraps. I'm also using the Stories by the Month packaging from Ali Edwards. I think that that's a cute little piece of ephemera. And then I had this bag from Dry Goods, and I really liked how this looked, and I knew I needed something for the back. So I went and pulled this piece of 6x8 cardstock from my stash, and I had to trim it down because it's from Ali Edwards. I think it's from the Star Quarterly Scrapbook Kit, which was like the first year, so it's pretty old. And they are the size for outside the page protector, but I want to go inside the page protector, so I had to trim it down. And then I'm just going to adhere this on top of it, and then I'm going to crop it into squares to go into all of the pockets on the back side of this piece, this insert. So some months I might have enough ephemera to fill both sides, and other months I probably won't. I'm thinking that filling just the front is going to be the norm for me. And then I'm going to do something a little bit more creative on the back. So this one, I'm including this large piece of ephemera, but I could see in putting a large photo or just some pattern paper or lots of different things on the back. So it's going to be fun to just kind of play with these 2x2 pockets. I'm really excited for that opportunity this year. I'm trimming these down to 2x2, and it's kind of like a puzzle to keep them in line. I had to trim a little bit more off the top because the pockets are 2x2. They are actually slightly smaller than 2x2, so that the overall page protector is 6x8 because it needs that little bit of space to create the border between the pocket. I am going to take that one and toss it out so that you could have that piece of vellum that I put the sticker on the other side kind of peek through. And I'm going to end up putting a piece of chipboard on that. Now I'm just going to go ahead and slip all these into the pockets and remembering the order that they go, because it's kind of like a puzzle, like I said, and then just making sure that they're trimmed down enough to fit into the pockets. When you are cutting something large like this to go into pockets, you want to make sure that you're trimming off if they don't fit on the outside edge so that you don't have a gap in your image. So that's something I'm just keeping in mind as I'm trimming these down and slipping them into the pockets. On the front there, I also have some of the covers from my calendars for the I have some daily calendars that I picked up this year. So I have 2 of the covers from that. I have a candy wrapper. I have some packaging from new pajamas I got, just little tags and things. I have called myself a trash collector. And yesterday we just got some new yoga blocks and I just took the packaging from it and my boyfriend thought I was a little weird. So, that's going to go into my February one and I don't care. It's fun. So I had 3 more pockets here and I wasn't sure what to put in them. I was thinking about putting in some just embellishments or something, but I also had this Old Navy piece of paper or scrap, and I decided to just put it into 2 of them because I felt like that way you could kind of read what it was a little bit more. And I don't care that it's in 2. It's kind of, I don't know, it's just more pieces of the same thing. And then for the last one, I actually went and pulled a gum wrapper, not a wrapper, but the package of gum out of my bag because I just finished the pack and I knew that would work too because that is something that I use pretty regularly and I knew I used it in January. So even though it's February while I was putting this together, I was totally fine grabbing that and adding it to the spread. Things like that I use frequently. It's fun to put them in because it's fun to see over time how they change. Either the brand changes their packaging or I stop using it or I get a different brand. And it's just fun to see. That piece of cardstock there from Everyday Explorers, I forgot I had it. So I could have used that to add to another pocket, but oh well, I decided that is done. And you can see more images of that coming to my Instagram soon. So now I'm working back on the spread and putting together the rest of the pockets. And I decided to pull out the January Stories by the Month kit to fill the rest of the pockets because those kits have so many supplies in them. And I already used it for one spread, but there's so much in there that I could definitely use it to create another spread and have less to put into my stash. So that's kind of my plan here. I had used most of the 3x4 cards that I really liked for journaling though, so I ended up with a couple of 4x6 ones that I cropped down to make 2 journaling cards, and I actually really, really love how this turned out. So that one there for the title card, I think it worked perfectly, and I'm kind of hoping they do that in the future kits. Actually, I have some of the later kits, so I haven't really looked through them yet, so I should go look and see if they have those similar cards because I really love how that title card comes out with that little spot at the top. You'll see as I put the rolling date stamp in there. I created a filler card there with a tag that said 125. I'm trying to use up the things that are dated, of course, because those will be harder to use, especially if they have the year on them in the future. There was that tag that had the 2024 turning to 2025. I used the card that looked like that in my other spread using this kit, but I decided not to use it here and I will just use that in one of my mini albums. So here I pulled over my tray of scraps and I do have a whole scrap organization system and I have a video on my channel sharing how I organize my scraps. So if you're interested in that, you can go check that out. I'll link it down below. But I also have this tray for like my most recent scraps before I put them into my organization system. So I'm just going through here and looking at what I might want to do in terms of filling these extra pockets. I don't end up finding anything in the scraps that I think coordinates, but it's just nice to get in the habit of looking and seeing what I could use. So now I have something in every pocket and I'm going to go through and start putting them together. For this piece here, I just adhered that vellum on some white scrap cardstock that I trimmed down and added that tag on there. And later I'm going to go ahead and add a brad on top of it. Next, I'm moving on to my to all of these words here. I wanted to stitch them down. So I took them over to my sewing machine, which now has red thread in it. I just wanted to switch it up recently and I put red thread and I thought that pop of color would be kind of fun here. And I just stitched all of them down and I'm just going through and taping back the stitching on the back side. So I do not use my sewing machine really for fabric that much. I pretty much only use it for paper stitching. And what I do is I just kind of pull the threads through the back and tape them down with Scotch tape so there's no loose threads or knots or anything on the front of the card. One of them I kind of messed up a little bit, but honestly you can't really tell. My sewing machine kind of got a knot or something like that, but it's fine. And when I'm doing something like this and I'm doing the stitching, I kind of expect it to be a little imperfect, especially with the color that makes it pop a little bit. I don't know, I just like the quirky look, but stuff like this is what made this spread take a little bit longer than other spreads that I have done because I did stitch down 7 cards. So now I'm working on my title card, and this is the one I said I love how this came out. I wanted to use some sort of ephemera piece on there or one of those paper die cuts, but I ended up going with this chipboard piece, and I thought that was perfect. I love that piece. I thought it was so pretty, and I'm super happy with how this card came out. Like I said earlier, I had this little section here, which was perfect for my rolling date stamp. If they have this card again in the other kits, I'm going to cut it down again into 2 3x4s because it's just perfect like that. The other one, you can see I flipped it upside down so that the label section was at the top, and I'm going to use that for my title. So I'm going to use this stamp set, which I love, and I have this linked in my Amazon storefront and also in the description box below because this is just one of my go-to stamps. If you watch my videos, I use this all the time. But I'm stamping out my title here, which says Craft Room Painting Part 2. Because this weekend, that's what I did. I did the second half of painting my craft room. And like I said, I'll share more about that in a future video, but I basically split painting my craft room into 2 sections because there's too much stuff in there. So this way I was able to like shift it from one side to the other as I painted. And then I'm just going to do my journaling about my painting the craft room, which was on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, if you count all of the prep work and everything. So that kind of was a lot of my photos on this right-hand side of my spread. Once I finished the journaling, I decided I wanted to add a word phrase strip at the bottom of this card. And this kit came with a sheet of orange word phrase strips, which I don't love the color with the kit, but I do end up using some of them. For this card, probably because it's green and I don't love the orange and green together, I went over to my stash and pulled over black thinking it was a neutral. What I don't love is that the orange and black together end up looking kind of Halloween-like. But other than that, I'm really happy with a lot of how this spread comes together with those word phrase strips, which you'll see in a little bit. I added a brad from my stash onto that tag, which I tend to do whenever I have one of those tags that has a hole. I like to add either a brad or some thread or something just to kind of finish it off. And then I added another one of those word phrase strips onto that photo there. And I'm just kind of looking around and figuring out what I'm going to put on these other cards. So I have 3 journaling cards left, and I need to think about how I'm going to fill them up. So I decided that this one would be a fun one to just kind of tell the story of a few different things that happened this week in these little boxes. I use the orange word phrase strips as kind of like a jumping off point for each of these stories. So the first one, I end up going with Hello 2025, again, using those dated products as soon as possible to tell the story about things that were happening in the news this week, which I don't always include, but this was a very newsworthy week. And I did document a lot of that in my Hobonichi cousin, which you'll see when I share that video very soon about my January spreads. And then let's see, I also documented going shopping on Friday night. I went out to dinner on Friday night, so I documented that. And then doing yoga. So just kind of a few different stories from the week, filling in these different spots. And I am so thrilled with how this card came out, except for the orange and black, like I said. But otherwise, I love it. You'll see as it comes together. That one that says love these things about January, I'm going to use that one instead as kind of a jumping off point prompt. So rather than telling the story of things specifically from this week, I'm going to tell the story of a few things that I love during the month of January. So basically what I do is I'm going to create a list of those things, and then I'm going to use my alpha stamp again to stamp out those titles. So again, when I say that this spread took a little bit longer, it's because I'm doing things like fussy cutting out words, stitching on here, doing alpha stamping, those repetitive tasks that take longer in scrapbooking. So if you want to do this project and you're worried about the time it takes, you can make it super simple. You can just slip cards into pockets, adhere a few embellishments down, do your journaling, and call it done. And if you do that, once you already have your photos printed, I would say it could take like 10 to 15 minutes to do a spread. But if you want to do more of these detailed things, it is going to take longer. So sometimes that's what I do, and other times I want to just get it done. So that card there, like I said, had a couple of the like little spots that weren't big enough for journaling. So I added one of the black word phrase strips to one of them, and then I added one of the heart stickers to another. So this kit came with these heart stickers that had these eyes in them. And I really like the colors, but the eye was a little strange to me. So what I did was I took a white word phrase strip from my stash and covered up the eye, and it's perfect. I love how it turned out. So that's what I plan to do, to use some of those other hearts in my spreads. And I actually really like how it looks to have the heart with the word phrase strip on top of it. I'm finishing up my journaling on this card and just thinking about the things I'm going to write in each of these boxes. One of them I'm going to fill in off camera because I just wanted to keep a little bit of the story private to protect other people's privacy. So now I'm moving on to these other two cards. My plan for the card with the rainbow stripe down the side is my bullet point list. So pretty much every week in Project Life, I include a bullet point list of little stories from the week that aren't documented elsewhere on my spread. So that is kind of my plan for that one. And then, like I said, this Love These Things About January is going to be just overall stories about January, and some of them are going to kind of cover the stories for this week so that I don't have to add it on the other card, but they're more just overall. So I documented how I love the fresh start of a new year and just fresh starts in general, how I'm staying in so much and being cozy and relaxing because it's so cold outside, how I've been cross-stitching and reading and crafting and playing my Switch, just lots of cozy things indoors, and how much I love my new journals. I love having those fresh start of new journals in January. And even though January is over, I still don't think that fresh start feel of the journals has really quite worn off yet. So I'm really enjoying that. I like how this card turns out cut down to a 3x4. I feel like I could have done this exact same technique on the 4x6 that it was originally and filled it out and just had more things to tell. But I'm happy with how this came out, and I feel like it was a good addition to this spread just to add a few more words and another card on here to kind of break up all of the photos. And I don't know, I think it comes out pretty balanced in the end. The last card I have to do is my bullet point list. And for this one, I wanted to have something for bullets. And lately I've been using my Zig dot marker all the time for my bullets, and I want to just do something different. So I had recently been reminded that I had some Planner Kate stickers in my stash. I have not used them in forever, but I really like these ones. I really love this shape. And you'll probably see that I have used this shape a lot, just drawn this with my pen to create my bullet points. So I decided to use these stickers as my bullet points, and I paired them with a similar color on that rainbow strip, which I thought was just a fun little touch, and added one of the black word phrase strips across the top because I wanted to continue that across the spread. I had already used a few of those on the right hand side, so I wanted to use some on the left hand side just to balance it out. And that just goes back to when I'm scrapbooking in Project Life, how I really like to pull from formulas. So when I'm pulling from a supply that I pull from my stash, that now becomes part of my recipe for my spread, and I want to use it more than once. Of course, that doesn't always happen. There are some things on the spread that are not repeated and it works, but other things I really like that repetition. So once I use the alpha stamp to stamp the title for my craft room, bringing it in again was just an easy choice to balance out the spread. I'm looking to my Hobonichi cousin off camera here to see what are the stories that I want to tell for this week. There's always a few little ones that I would forget if I didn't document them during the week. In my Hobonichi cousin, on my weekly spreads in there, I tend to keep track of what happened that week. If you are unfamiliar with that, I will link my playlist for my 2024 Hobonichi cousins so you can see what those look like. And the January 2025 one will be coming to this YouTube channel soon. So stay tuned if you are interested in seeing that. So that is going to wrap up my spread. I'm just going to go ahead and slip everything into the pockets. Some of these cards I do have to trim down, especially the ones that I cut myself because they were not originally 3x4s. And some of these ones too, if there's just something a little bit bulkier, that makes it so that you have to kind of trim it down. But otherwise, I'm really happy with how this spread came out. At the time that I'm slipping these into the pockets, I'm also kind of reevaluating the layout and making sure that I like the balance of the spread and how everything looks. I'm
really happy with how this one turned out. I like that the words of the different days of the week kind of go left to right across the spread, but not perfectly. That's totally fine. I think there was like something on the page protector there. I was trying to clean it off, and just slipping these in and calling this one good. Again, I am super happy with how this turned out. I really love when I'm using a product from my stash as a jumping off point, and I hope to do that more this year. Here's a look at the completed spread. Thank you guys so much for being here. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. And as always, I hope to see you guys on the next one. Bye.